Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך. ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם. בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך. וקשרתם לאות על ידיך. והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
למען תזכרו, ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני, אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Please be seated.
All this we hold to be true and sure. You alone, eternal one, are our God, and we are Israel, your people. You have freed us from oppressors and delivered us from tyrants. You led us out of Egypt forever to serve you in freedom. When we witnessed your power, we praised your name and gave thanks. Willingly, we accepted your rule. Then, full of joy, we sang together.
Mi chamocha belim Adonai, Mi kamocha neda b'kodesh, Norah tehilot osefele. Adonai himlo le'olam va'ed.
ונאמר, כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו.
Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. And we continue. Grant, eternal God, that we may lie down in peace, and let us rise up to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your wise counsel, and for your name's sake be our help. Shield us from sickness and war, from famine and distress, and keep us from wrongdoing. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings, for you are our guardian and deliverer, a gracious and merciful God. Guard our going out and our coming in, that now and always we may have life and peace. We praise you, O God. May your sheltering peace descend on us and all who dwell on earth. Please rise. Adonai sefatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanura, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Koneh Hakol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imachot, u'Mevi Geula livnei v'neihem, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מזריח השמש ומוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, מדון מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, Ne'eman ata lahachayot metim. Baruch ata Adonai, machayeh hametim. Kadosh ata v'norah shemecha, ve'ein lanu Eloah baladecha. Baruch ata Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. Please be seated.
V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, לדורותם ברית עולם, ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש.
Our God and God of our ancestors, may our rest on this day be pleasing in your sight. In your gracious love, Eternal One, let the holiness of your Sabbath enter our hearts. And may all Israel who hallow your name be exalted by its peace.
We praise you, Eternal One, for the holiness of the Sabbath. Eternal God, be gracious to your people Israel, and in your love accept their prayers. May our worship now and always be acceptable in your sight. We praise you, O God, whom alone we worship in reverence. Modim anachnu lach, shatahu Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu le'olam va'ed. Tzor chayenu magen yishenu, atahu ledor vador. Nodeh lecha v'saper tehilatecha, al chayenu hamasurim biyadecha, va'al nishmotenu habakodot lach, va'al nisecha shebachol yom imanu, va'al niflotecha v'tovotecha, shebachol eit erev v'avoker b'tzoharayim. Baruch ata Adonai, atov shimcha, u'lecha na'er l'chodot. Supreme source of peace, grant true and lasting peace to your people Israel. For it is good in your sight that your people Israel and all peoples may be blessed at all times with your gift of peace. We praise you, O God, the source of peace. And so let us take a few moments for silent meditation. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to you, O God, our rock and our Redeemer.
Ose shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol bnei Adam.
Now it's our pleasure to invite Rabbi Andrew to join us for a special sermon.
Why do important facts get overlooked or forgotten or not appreciated at the time? 60 years ago this week, Yuri Gagarin became the first human in space. Of course, it took some time for us to be amazed by this fact because the Soviet Union failed to mention it until they knew that it was totally successful. But this week I heard that the poor, brave guy, after orbiting the globe in space, had to bail out and come back to Earth hanging on a parachute as there was no ability to land the capsule. Amazing. And the added fact that he landed in an isolated field seen only by a mother and daughter and had to be carried on a cart to the nearest village to find a phone to ring his controllers. A couple of facts that bring that heroic event into focus and make it, at least to me, more memorable again. This week we have been inundated with facts about the life of Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. Personally, I've always admired him because of his incautious sense of humour. Some of you will know that I've tended to be occasionally less than diplomatic and increasingly out of touch with what is politically correct. I can see my son, the Rabbi's raised eyebrow from time to time, and Sharon reminds me I'm getting more like her father, saying things that nowadays should not be said. But there any comparison with the Duke ends, especially as the one time I might have met him, he had a cold and only the Queen turned up. You see, I had a calm childhood, not affected by my father being in the army for the first 2 years of my life, though he hardly had a heroic war, spending the years in Barnard Castle organising company dances and table tennis tournaments. Or so I believe, for I never learnt the real facts. And the only migration I've ever made as a refugee was from Birmingham to Northwood. Whereas Prince Philip, well, I'm sure you've read the facts of his life. TV programs, newspaper supplements, plaudits, and sometimes those without grace speaking and writing deriding dismissals, or even worse, the Nazi prince. And the hundreds of complaints to the BBC for cancelling MasterChef to cover his death and life. Personally, the glimpse of a bygone age was a welcome relief from the constant obsession with the COVID pandemic. But the string of facts, the ones that hit home to me, were about his childhood and youth, especially when I compared it with my own. Born into a sort of privilege, maybe, but born on a kitchen table and soon having to flee in an orange box, they said. Unstable parents, a rotter for a father, sent from pillar to post, mother who was locked up in a psychiatric hospital, siblings he was forced to disown, journeying from Greece to Germany to Scotland, and here his salvation began, with the influence of a very special Jew, Kurt Hahn. Both of them forced to flee, Philip because he mocked the Nazis, the other because he was a Jew. And it seems, from what I read and heard this week, that it was this meeting with Hahn and his extraordinary school that created the character and personality that became the Duke of Edinburgh. The first book of Chronicles in the Bible ends with the words, David, son of Jesse, died at a ripe old age, and his son Solomon reigned in his stead. And it continues, the acts of King David, early and late, are recorded in the history of Samuel the seer, the history of Nathan the prophet, and the history of Gad the seer, together with all the mighty deeds of his kingship and the events that befell him, and Israel, and all the kingdoms of the earth. It indicates that as well as stories we get in the biblical text, there are other sources, now lost or undiscovered, that covered the life and times of the king. Multimedia, even back then. Now I read that only recently that Goldstein issued records of Philip's school career there, evidently written by Hahn a few weeks before his pupil's engagement to the Queen. And one sentence above all summed it up for me, and I quote, When he was in the middle school, he got into a fair number of scrapes through recklessness and wildness. He was often naughty, but never nasty. He showed an ease and forthrightness in dealing with all kinds. King David, chosen from relative obscurity, a courageous warrior, loyal servant to him when he tried to kill him, devoted friend to Jonathan, and yes, the Bathsheba affair and other actions we might, according to today's standards, consider dubious. And yet it was the king who purchased a field in Jerusalem and made it his capital, who established the kingdom of Israel, created a royal line, and became a legend. David Melech Yisrael, a song that preserves his memory and a story that inspires us still. And mentioning Israel, the day after Israel Independence Day, we should recall that Prince Philip was the first member of the royal family to visit Israel, admittedly on a pilgrimage to his mother's grave on the Mount of Olives, but also to acknowledge her at Yad Vashem as a righteous among the Gentiles. I have no doubt that in the weeks to come, other sources will be dug up to add to the myriad of columns of newsprint discussing the life and times of Prince Philip. Some will be facts, others will be fiction. As with King David, some stories will show him in a good light, some less so. But like King David, I sum up the prince as a real human being with humor and candor, insight and energy, courage and loyalty. A person full of interest who leaves a real legacy in the organizations he founded and nurtured for youth and conservation, who showed immense devotion and support for the Queen and the monarchy and to this country and the Commonwealth. And by the one new fact will I now always think of him. He was often naughty, but never nasty. These words will bring a smile to my face, and I hope to yours too. Amen.
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 We now turn to counting of the Omer, which again, I honestly leave to Rabbi Leah.
So we say the blessing together if you are counting the Omer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav vetzivanu al sfirat haomer. Hayom 20 yom shehem shnei shvuot v'shisha yamim la'omer. Today is the 20th day of the Omer, making 2 weeks and 6 days of the Omer.
And so we now rise as we come to our concluding prayers. Let us now praise the Sovereign of the universe and proclaim the greatness of its Creator, whose unity it is our mission to make known, whose rule it is our task to make effective.
ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש 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 ברוך הוא.
Shehu notei shamayim v'yosed aretz, u'moshav yekaro b'shamayim mima'al, u'shchinatu zo b'govhei maramim, hu Eloheinu ein od, emet malkeinu efes sulato, kakatuv b'torato, v'yadata hayom v'hashavota el levavecha, ki Adonai hu ha'Elohim, b'shamayim mima'al, v'al ha'aretz mitachat ein od.
ונאמר, וחיה אדוני למלך הכל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
The growing good of the world is partly dependent on unhistoric acts. and that things are not so ill with you and me as they might have been, is half owing to the number who lived faithfully a hidden life and rest in unvisited tombs. Even when they are gone, the departed are with us. They inspire us to live as in their higher moments they themselves sought to live. We remember them now. They remain in our hearts. They are a continual blessing.
On this Shabbat, we think of Albert Benny Blind, brother of Renee Simmons, Henrietta Collin, the mother of Michael, the grandmother of Richard, of Irene Aitman, the wife of Gabriel, mother of David, Tim, and Jane, June Cohen, the mother of Jonathan and Juliet Klein, Stuart Kettner, the brother of Carol Woodcock and brother-in-law of Michael, Theodore Haase, the grandfather of Jutta Haase-Schultz. We are saddened by the recent deaths of Linda Marsh, mother of Lisa, mother-in-law of Brian Liebman, grandmother of Sophie and Ewan, and Rosalinda Cruz, the mother of our cleaner Maria Lourdes da Costa. And as we are thinking also of Prince Philip, we now turn to the Lord Lieutenant of Hertfordshire.
Sovereign of the universe, who gives salvation unto rulers and dominion unto princes, together with Britain and the Commonwealth, we mourn the passing of Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, in his 100th year of life. We give thanks for his long life, for the 73 years of his marriage to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, and for the constancy and strength with which he supported her through the long years of her reign. We honour his courageous service and decorated naval officer in the Second World War, his inspiring leadership of the Duke of Edinburgh's award programme, and his dedication to the conservation of nature and the environment, along with all his other acts of devoted public service. We think of his children, grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and pray that they will find comfort in their loss and inspiration in the example he gave of dignified service. Above all, we think of our dear Queen in this time of her loss, and pray that she will find comfort through these dark hours and days in the recollection of their dedicated marriage and their shared ideals of royal duty, as well as the affection of her family, the nation and the Commonwealth. May the Duke of Edinburgh rest in peace, and may his memory be a blessing. God save the Queen. Amen.
Amen. And together we now recite Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agalau v'zman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mavarach le'olam ulalmei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'a v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'tada v'talei v'talal shemei d'kudisha b'richu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbachata v'nechemata, Da'amiran ba'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min Shemaya, V'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru. Amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, Hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol b'nei Adam, v'imru. Amen. May the Most High Source of perfect peace grant peace to us, to all Israel, and to all humanity. And let us say,
Amen.
Amen. Please be seated. Just a couple of notices. Tomorrow evening at 7 p.m, if you enjoyed the music from our Yom Ha'atzmaut services last week with the Nigunim ensemble, then you can enjoy a concert, whatever you're doing on Saturday evening at 7 p.m.
And just play it in the background.
You're eating dinner, you're cooking, you're out in the garden, hopefully. Whatever you're doing, you can have it on in the background or just really enjoy the beautiful music that is on offer. You just can click on and wherever you watch your live stream, you'll be able to enjoy that tomorrow evening. And then on Wednesday, something which is rather different, curated by Omer Portillo, our care coordinator. We have an evening, a workshop, to be able to consider different ways to think about depression. We know of the toll of mental illness and the strain that we have all been under through the various lockdowns through this past year. Please come together in a safe environment created by Omer, to be able to come together with others, to be able to think perhaps just a little bit differently. And anything else? Or?
If you want to save the date for the following week, we have really a fantastic opportunity to watch a film together. It's a short film, just 30 minutes, starting straight after our normal Havdalah, so at 5:15, together with the filmmaker. He will be joining us for a discussion afterwards. And it is a fantastic film. It's very interesting and actually very funny, about stereotypes of Germans and how they encounter Jews in Germany today. Really a very, very fun and also deep and meaningful film. So do come and join us for that as well. That's next Saturday at 5:15.
We could carry on talking about that all the way through, but just to thank Robert. We'll call him Robert for now.
I was very polite.
But you were very polite, but also just how proud we are as a community to be able to have two distinguished people speaking with us this evening as well. Robert and Dad, thank you both so much, and for everybody for contributing in the chat and having this very dignified service all together. And so we conclude together with Yigdal.
Yigdal Elohim Hai Vayishtabach Nimsa Beheneter Batziuto Echad Ben Yachid Kaihudo Nelam V'gam En Sof Le'achduto Ein Lo Damot HaGuf Ve'eino Guf Lo Na'aroch Elav Kedushato Kadmon L'chod Haba Asher Nivra Rishon Bereshit L'Reshito Ino Adon Olam L'chol Notza Yoreh Gedulato Malchuto Shefa Nevuato Netareno El Anshe Segulato V'tifato Lo Kam B'Yisrael Moshe Yodmi Uma Bitet Emunato Torah Emet Natan Hanei Amoel Al Yad Neviho Ne'eman Beito Lo L'Chalifael V'lo Yami Dato Le'olamim L'Hazulato Sofer Ve'yodea Setarenu Mabit L'Sof Tova B'Kadmato Gomel Eish Hesed K'mifalo Noten L'Rasha Ra Karishato Yishpoch L'Ket Yamim HaKol Batzar Rucho לפתור מחקקת ישועתו. חיי עולם נטע בתוכנו, ברוך עד שם תהילתו.
תתקבל זלותכון ובאותכון דכל ישראל, קודם אבוכון, תשמעמה, ואמרו Amen. May the prayers and supplications of the house of Israel everywhere be accepted by their loving Creator, and let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.